Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest deep dive webinar. We will be diving into component sourcing and standardization. And we will be explaining two key roles for this today, XCR and XSP. And I just want to do a little housekeeping here. I'm in our user community. If you're not familiar with the user community, you can check out the link in the video. If you're on YouTube, it's down below in the description. That will bring you to this specific post in the community where you can stream this webinar live right now. You can get some more details. You can binge watch our past webinars. They're all very exciting. Hot watches, I highly recommend. And finally, and most important for today, we encourage you to ask your questions at the end of this webinar by putting your question in the comment section of the post. You can't ask your question in YouTube. You have to come into the community and ask your question on the post. So right here. We also encourage you to just let us know how we're doing. If you like the topic, give us a hooray or a hurrah. Tell Naeem and Frederick that they're looking good today. You know, we welcome all your feedback. So pretty much at the end of the webinar, we'll scroll down, we'll see what we got for questions, and Naeem and Frederick will answer live. All right, without further ado, I've already mentioned their names a couple of times. I'm going to pass the ball to Naeem and Frederick to guide you through this exciting topic.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Hi, everyone. I'm excited today to present to you the new roles, this new deep dive around component sourcing and standardization. I have today with me Frederick, who is the senior manager of this topic in ENOVIA R&D Define. So we're going to share some slides, some content, and at the end we will try to answer your questions together. So as you are familiar with every deep dive we do, this is the agenda today. First, we're going to talk about the introduction of the role and where it fits within the platform in terms of portfolio. And after that, I'm going to go deep dive into the role and talk about the functional capabilities of this role, and we will show some demonstration through different steps of the process. And at the end, we're talking about some new features and some new enhancements, and we will start, we will get your questions and we will answer them live. So if we look at the portfolio of ENOVIA, as you know, we have themes. We separated the portfolio in different themes and disciplines. So here we have a new theme that is called Global Sourcing and Value Network. And within this theme, we have two disciplines, and we are going to focus on the component sourcing and standardization this time. So in the future, we will obviously talk about the strategic sourcing and the roles that we are planning to present in this discipline. But today, our focus will be on the sourcing and the standardization part. So let's start first with some challenges and the solutions, and I let now Frederick describe to us these challenges that led us to develop these new roles.
Okay, hello everybody. So today, for this domain, what we try to solve is two main challenge. The first one is from an engineering perspective, ensuring that the latest component available is used during the design. And when we will talk about component here, is usually the ones that come from external partners and suppliers. And the second one is that the source component are tracked and maintained over the product lifecycle. And for that, we design a solution to streamline component sourcing and standardization process while ensuring the compliance of your component with organizational policies and strategies. Now, on these two roles, who do we serve? We serve three personas here, three type of users. The design engineer, either electronic, mechanical, or other, for example, probably in life science, we can have design engineer that have to source external components to be able to do their work. The second one is the sourcing manager on the other side, which is in relation with your suppliers. And in the middle, we have the component engineer that maintain the library of usable components by the engineering during the product development. To serve these three personas, we have two roles: supplier item manager and component request engineer. One is mainly focused on the first one is mainly focused on the management of the component and the governance of introduction or modification of these components. And the second one is to just enter and participate to this governance. In terms of content, we have we are handling four main concepts, and we own really three that are in this component space. So the first one is the manufacturer equivalent item, which is the specification, the external specification coming from your supplier, and that you will import in your system to say, okay, that is what was said by the supplier to me, and his product is that. The second one is the qualifications, plural, that will give you the usage of the component in your system in relation to other items. Okay. The third one is really the governance part of it, is the component request, how to introduce a new component coming from engineering as a request, coming from the sourcing because you want to qualify a new source for an existing component, or is it something coming from your suppliers that say, oh, sorry guys, I modified part of my definition, or I will stop this product in 6 months. And the last one is engineering item, physical product in the 3D platform that any mechanical engineer is already aware of, I think. And that will be.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, thank you, Frederick, for this mapping. So here we start understanding who are the business users, so designers, component engineers, and sourcing managers, which roles are have been developed in order to answer the challenges of these users, and what are the different terms that we're going to see today in order to answer these challenges in terms of software. So we're going to use qualifications, component requests, manufacturer equivalent items. All are based on engineering items. So before digging into the details of what these roles will give me as a user, let's start to understand how they are positioned within the platform. So as you know, the platform has the Collaborative Business Innovator role, or IFW, where you can connect all the users in the value stream digitally. On top of that, we have the Collaborative Industry Innovator role, where you can collaborate across all the disciplines in the organization, and you can develop innovative products. So that is the CSV role. And on top of that, we have these additional roles. So you can see that the prerequisite of these roles is the IFW and CSV, and they lie on top of these two roles of the platform. Just to tell you, in terms of availability, these roles have been first introduced already in 21X FD03 as CA. So it was a controlled availability both on cloud and on premise. Starting from 21X FD06, these roles become GA on premise, and the cloud support is planned. It's targeted in the next coming year. Another important comment we would like to draw your attention to is that, as you will see, these roles will have a collaborative business process that is sometimes a little bit long maybe, or you will see different ways of approvals, but that is because this development was based on requirements from large companies that we work with, and we develop our, these processes together with their requirements. It doesn't mean that these solutions do not fit other companies. So we would like really to get your feedback and to start understand how this would fit your needs. So which applications we have? So for the supplier item manager or XSP, we have two applications. One is the supplier item qualification and then the component request administration. And for the component request engineer, we have one application. It's called component request management. Okay, so one role will initiate the component request and the other role will manage it, will communicate, will collaborate. And also the supplier item manager is a role that administrates the whole process. And we will see a little bit of that, but this is not our focus today. So back to the glossary, and I'm repeating a bit what Frederick said here. So we have the engineering item that represents all the engineering specifications for the component that is developed internally in the company. On the other hand, we have also those specifications that represent the engineering specifications of the component, the way we get it from the manufacturer, and that's what we call manufacturer equivalent item, or MEI. I probably will continue talking of MEI because that's a little bit too long to say all the time, manufacturer equivalent item. So just let's remember that MEI is always the manufacturer equivalent item. External, we have what we call the part number of the manufacturer, that is the MPN. And this is the number as we get it directly from the manufacturer. It may not be unique. Same number might exist across different manufacturers. And here we put an example of how these numbers would look like internally and externally. Okay, so on the left side, we see an engineering item. This is a transistor, for example. It has internal number, which is the company number given by the internal company. Now, if I want to source it from outside, I have two sourcing manufacturers. One is the ST Microelectronics, and the other one is the Texas Instruments. So each one of them has their own MPN number, as you can see. But the way we define the manufacturer equivalent item, or the MEI, is a combination of the manufacturer and its MPN. So what you see in the lower table here, that what is engineering item internally can be, let's say, translated or compatible with two different manufacturers, while each one of them have their own MPN. And the MEI is a combination of the manufacturer and the MPN. So that will give the uniqueness of this number internally, the way we define it for us in the company. So in general, the process, when you want to work in this sourcing process, you have the administration side of it. So you have the request administration, and we will show a bit of it. And then we have the management of the request, where you create a new component request, you submit it, you qualify it, and finally you approve it. Our focus today will be on the request management, but we want to give you some highlights on some background on how do we administrate the request before we creating it. So how the administrator will be working with it. So a component engineer is responsible to build this administration. So that means that we have to define first some templates. So we're talking about 5 pre-steps here that we use in the process. That is the submission, the under review, the request approval under implementation and final review. Each one of them, of these steps, can be linked to a route template. So it's a choice that you can make, that in order to achieve this maturity of the process, you may want to add a template, which is a route template, where users can have activities there. We describe the activities that will enable us to move from one state to the other. So this is done as part of the administration, and the routes will be instantiated once we start the whole process, and users will receive activities. So you will notice that through the whole process, we have this workflow. And under each one of these predefined steps, we have the list of activities which come from a route template. So again, these activities are basically tasks that you build in the templates, and the template is attached to each one of these route steps or workflow steps. So another level of these relations, just to explain to you, that the component request template is based on what we call a category. And each one of these categories, you can link it to these route templates. So as we said, there are 4 templates that we can attach, and each one of these templates basically will generate the routes once we promote the workflow and we start moving on with this process. So starting from 1, 2, 3 until 4, then we have these 4 templates. And in this component request template itself, you see how we link the route template directly into the component request template. In general, what we're saying here is that the need for this is that each process could be different. When you have components of certain characteristics, they might have different workflows, different activities, different feedbacks that you need from different departments, different engineers, and so on. So this way you have this flexibility to adapt your workflow according to the type of components you will be requesting. So this is the link between the component category and also what we call the active classes. You have seen earlier that we didn't mention it, we didn't emphasize it, that the CCM role, it's a co-requisite to the XSP, which means that I can use these libraries and classes which are active in order to link them to the component request as part of the component category, which means that when I create my component request, I can say, okay, I want a component request based on this category, and the category comes from a specific library which is managed by the CCM role or by the classification manager. It's not mandatory, but that's something that is also part of the process, and it's something recommended. And this you can classify also your component requests, and you can adapt them according to your classification mechanism that you have in your system. Okay, so all of this is part of the administration. We're not going to see this, but just to give you an idea how things were built and how the workflow is built based on routes and templates and classification libraries. And we want to show you now a demonstration, and we are going to use 2 roles here, which are mapped to ENOVIA roles. So we have the design engineer, and this design engineer basically has been granted the component request engineer ENOVIA role, and the component engineer who has been granted the supplier item manager. The sourcing manager is not going to be shown in terms of software. We're just going to highlight his activities, but we're not going to see anything during the demonstration. So this is the process which will be shown today to give you an idea how do we manage requests, component requests. So we will go from A till F. The target of this request, as you can see at the end, is that I want to qualify my components that can be used in my organization, and the request will be approved. So this is my target, doing all of this using different roles, business users like design engineers, component engineers, and so on. So in short, The process will start by creating a new component request. So we have a design engineer who finds a need to create a new request. So he initiates this request and he submits this request. And then the component engineer will need to verify, first of all, does this component exist? Do we have existing source component? If it exists, the question is, okay, is this qualified? And then that will be the responsibility of the component engineer who takes care of the qualification of the source components. If this is not, does not exist, and then we need to interact here with a supplier or manufacturers and to start the definition of the components. So our assumption in this demo is that the component does not exist. We need to go through this process of communication with the external manufacturers. And after that, we create the component while defining the part number, the manufacturer part number, and then we run the different qualification processes. And finally, we release the component, which will approve the whole request, and the component itself will be qualified. Okay, so let's start with the first part of this demo where we submit a component request. So I am, in this case, the component request represent the request that will be used in order to approve this new component. And as Frederick mentioned earlier, it's all about the governance. So we have here a process that will govern this request. And once we make the selections of the category, either request category or component, then we define exactly what will be the governance or the workflow that this request will go through based on the route, based on the classification, and so on. So component request has by default, we have different request categories. It could be introduction because we're introducing a new component that we don't have before. We are modifying probably a new component, or probably it is a notification that came from the supplier because the supplier has created modified this component and we need to be aware of it. So we create a request of type notification. So that's what you see here in the category of the request that we have 3. And in our scenario, we're going to introduce a new component. So we're going to select the first option. And after that, we use the component category. And that is the relation with the CCM role or with the libraries, the classification libraries that I mentioned earlier. It's something can be used. It's not really mandatory, but we can use also those classes that will in fact define in which, how we categorize the component itself. So since we already have this mechanism that is called classification, obviously we want to reuse it here in order to categorize this component. And then different content will be defined. For example, what is the input item? So the input item is the engineering item. Remember earlier we talked about engineering item. This is our internal item that represents the engineering specifications. And for this item, we want to request an external item. So that's where we start creating this link between internal and external. So the input item is the engineering item. We will add it during the creation of the component request. We will define who is the manufacturer. We can define also different attachments and so on. And then we submit this request. So let's see. And then we have, we talked about this workflow. I just found, just to repeat again, that the workflow here basically has its maturity state, as you can see, which represents the stage of the flow process. And at each level of this maturity state, we have different activities. So these are activities that we know that we need them to be activated, let's say, by different teams in order to go further. So it could be assessment, it could be some verifications that we need to do, it could be some kind of communication. And each time you receive the notification that you have an activity to do, then you need to make a decision here to apply to it, to agree or to reject. And you add also a comment why you're doing, why your feedback was as such. So this is really all about how we can govern and we can support the whole process and finally qualify and approve this component request. Okay, so let's now see how it works. We start here with the first step. So it is A in the process. So I am a design engineer. I am creating a new component request, and it is categorized as introduction because we are introducing a new component here. So I'm building now my component request. Could be, so I have a title here, and we have also description, as you can see, and so on. So there's quite a lot of information that you can build here. So this is the first relation we create here with the engineering item. So our component request will be around a transmission shaft. So I'm selecting here a transmission shaft that is released. It's important to mention that we are building a component request on something that is already approved internally. So I'm looking for a released transmission shaft, which is an assembly, by the way, and I'm attaching it as input item. So that's the input of the whole component request. Then we can, can add all kind of content, like for which plant, which project, what is the reason for this, the plan in terms of development date, and so on and so forth. And we have some sourcing information, and that's important. For example, what is the manufacturer? At this moment, since I am not communicating with the manufacturer, I wouldn't know what is the manufacturer part number, but I know that we want to source it from this one. So I can attach the manufacturer, and I mentioned that the sourcing will be through the URL official website of the manufacturer, and I can type it here, as you can see. So I know that in the future, this is the place where we have initiated our sourcing process. I also want to update or upload a specification document, so it becomes clear to everyone what are the specifications of this component we are requesting. And once everything is completed, I submit my request, and I'm done. So this process basically we just show in a simple way how we can create a component request that has attachments, it has content, it has the related engineering item, and currently there is no workflow initiated yet because we did not initiate the whole process. And by that, at that moment, we are now moving to the next step, as we can see here. And here we have 3 steps where we're just going to demonstrate at the end the creation of the component that will be the MEI creation. So as we said before, we first need to do some kind of verification. And we need to understand, okay, does the component exist? Is it qualified? If it does not exist, and that will be our case, then we start interacting with the manufacturer. We start capturing the information from this manufacturer into the component request, such as, for example, what is the manufacturer part number? That's one of the information we need to be defined in the component request. And also we will link the MEI that we create as an answering item. This will be the item that is going to satisfy this component request. So we will make all these relations, and at the end, we promote the workflow. It will be promoted to request approval. So at this moment, we will see that there are 2 activities here, since we assume there is no component in the organization. So the first one will be the assessment. We're going to communicate with the manufacturer, and now we have some more information which will allow us now to create the manufacturer equivalent item. So that will be the job of the component engineer, who has been informed about this new component request. So the first thing to do, obviously, is to review this component request that was created by the design engineer. So I go through the attachments, and I see that there is a spec here. Okay, I can open it, can download it, or I can take a look directly from within the platform. I don't have to download it. I can see those specifications of this transmission shaft to get an idea what are the engineering requirements. What is the engineering item itself? We can also review this in the Product Explorer, because we have here 3D. We have all the engineering information. I can get an idea of what is this engineering item that we are generating. We have generated this component request for. So we can use all these tools, and there you can see they're all connected to this component request. I don't have to leave my component request. I don't have to leave my environment. I'm staying within the same environment, and I just go to the Product Explorer. I can view the document, and I can communicate even with other users if needed also, knowing that we have the members. So the first thing, say, okay, now let's review it. We are under review, so we promote this component request to under review. And at this moment, the workflow will start officially in a way that if we refresh here, you will see that the routes now have been created, which are attached to this component request. So we have two assessments here. First, we need to do the component management assessment. And that will be requiring, this communication with the manufacturer and so on. And let's assume this step has been done, and we can now explain that, okay, there was a communication and the component was not found in the organization. So we need to work on it, communicate with external suppliers, and make this assessment. So at this moment, once this communication has been done, I will be able now to create the manufacturer equivalent item. So that will be the component that has two parts. It has the manufacturer information and it has the manufacturer part number. So this combination is what we call the MEI. That will be internally, if you will, the ID of this object into the database. So we have the manufacturer, that is the Shaft Systems, which is defined internally in the platform. We created the title and we have the manufacturer part number. And here we can build, all this information around this component, maybe some communication information, where this component will be sourced from. So we can define and indicate the URL of the manufacturer. And at this moment, we have created now the MEI. You will notice that there is one qualification that has been automatically generated. It's a general qualification. We will come back to that later on, but I just wanted to show you what we create, what gets created automatically. So now what I need to do, I need to take this MEI and link it to the component request. So as you can see on the left side, you may have a lot of MEIs, and you want to know which one. You just go to the search and I write, like 101, and I find my MEI, and I simply drag it and drop it into the component request as an answer item or items. Okay, this will be the item that we are going to source from this manufacturer. And I finished my work, so I can just confirm, approve my task, and I define a comment that we have an MEI, it has been created, and I just approve it. Now, automatically, the system will promote the whole governance process or the whole workflow to the next step. That will be request approval. Okay, so before talking about the approval process, let's talk about the qualifications. We have seen that there has been one qualification automatically created. It is attached to the manufacturer equivalent item. So what qualification is? Qualification, in a way, is something that it's a way to define and validate the usage of the MEI. So remember, MEI is a manufacturer equivalent item, and it will be used internally in the organization, but there are different levels of this usage. So we need qualifications to say, well, this MEI is qualified to be used in a specific project. It is qualified because its performance is approved, or its quality, or it is qualified to be used in a specific plant, probably. So that's why you have different types of qualifications. Some we categorize this either as general or equivalent or context qualifications. So we have different types of qualifications you can use in order to qualify the usage of your MEI internally in the organization. And for the equivalent qualifications, we can build different ones because we may have, for one engineering item, we can have relations with different manufacturer equivalent items, and each one of them could be qualified differently. So they may have different equivalent usage for that engineering item. So it could be one to many. So now, when we start dealing with this equivalent qualification in this specific step, so we create now the equivalent qualification. We wanted to show you another, it's not just general, but you have also the ability to create another type of qualification. So we are creating equivalent qualification, then we release the MEI, and then we promote the equivalent qualification to review, because then we have a review process and we need to continue this activity. There'll be some other teams involved here, and then we will promote the whole request to under implementation. So let's see how we are going to work with the qualification at this time. So I'm opening now back my MEI, and I'm going to focus on it. So that's why it is in full screen now. And I go to the, as you can see here, we have the qualifications tab. And here you have the list of all the qualifications of all types. So we are creating now a new qualification, and we are going to do it as equivalent qualification. And again, we need to link the engineering item to this equivalent qualification. We can assume that this qualification, for example, is something where we are saying, well, our engineering specifications are equivalent to the manufacturer engineering item specifications. So this qualification will simply analyze, and the people who are involved in this qualification will review the specifications, and they will react and give their feedback to this type of qualification. So at this moment we can release the MEI itself, since we have completed the definition of the qualifications, and now a qualification process can start in a way that, okay, so we have a qualification, now let's put it into review, because we need the users or the teams who are involved in these qualifications to start looking into the usage of the MEI based on this qualification. And let's assume now that the teams have been, let's say quality teams have been involved here, and we are informing everyone that these qualifications have been created. So on my side, I promote this activity, and I can see now we have different assessments in order to start working on these qualifications. It could be from quality, it could be from business risks, and finally we will promote the whole equivalent qualification itself. Okay, so now we will dig into really what's happening within the quality, how we react basically to the qualification itself. So here we assume we have, as I said earlier, we have a quality team, we have business risk team, and these teams could be involved in order to approve this qualification. So they give their feedback from quality and from business risk. They could be involved directly with the process, so they could be members of this workflow, or simply they may not be part of this workflow, but they can communicate with the component engineer who will give their feedback into this workflow process. So what's important is that we are getting here official feedback from different teams that will qualify the usage of this MEI within the organization. Now, we need then to approve it. So we update the approved attribute to yes, and then we finalize the process by automatically the system, once the activity is approved, the whole component request will be promoted to final approval. So back to the qualifications, and you can see now we have 3 activities here: assess component quality, business risk. So these team members have validated and the usage of this MEI within the organization, and they approve it. So they approve it from quality, from business risk also. So that's something we are what we're doing here. We are in fact giving this feedback, and we are registering this feedback as part of this workflow process. And then we can apply this into the qualification itself, as we can see on the left side. So now we can update the comment, for example, here. So it is part of the qualification definition, and we approve it. So we change the approved from no to yes. Note that we can have also extra extensions, so other attributes that we can also apply here if needed. So we can give more information on all these qualifications. So both qualifications are now approved. And then we can finalize the final assessment and saying that those both qualifications are now approved, and we have the assessment has been done. And then we have the final review. So this will be the final step of this process. The final step, which as a result will qualify the component, and the request will be obviously automatically approved. So here, basically, the last step to do is to review those the equivalent qualification and the general qualification, release them, and then approve the activity, which will automatically promote the whole component request to the final maturity state, which is approved. So let's see how we do that. So again, we have the maturity state of each one of these qualifications. So directly from here, you can promote it, and it is released. And we will promote also the other qualification, the equivalent one, to release, and we finalize the whole process. So once the job is done on the MEI, then we go back to the flow process and we approve the activity. So at this moment, as you can see, the component request is completed, which means it's approved, and the MEI is released at the end. So there is one view which is interesting if we want to take a look at this whole combination of MEI, qualifications, engineering items, all of this. So there is engineering view here, which in the future, let's say you are interested to know what were those MEIs and qualifications related to this engineering item, you can see it from this view. As you can see, I have here the equivalent qualification. On the right side, I have the general qualifications. And on the left side, I have all the MEIs. And all of them are related to this transmission shaft engineering item. Okay, so this is a holistic view that gives you a quick and easy access to any of the content that has been generated as part of the sourcing process here. Another interesting thing before we finalize our demo is, what about those relations? So let's say I am in another app, for example, engineering release. I am in this, looking at this shaft, and I open the relations app, and I want to understand what are all these equivalent qualifications and manufacturer equivalent item. They are all supported here. As you can see all these relations, and you can navigate between each one of these objects, or each one of these qualifications or manufacturer equivalent items. And you can even open it if you have, obviously, the app. If you are authorized, if you have the role, you can directly open it with the supplier item qualification app, as we can see here. So you can get further information and on the attachments, on the members, and so on. So that was the end. That was a complete demonstration. Again, we took a specific use case, specific scenario. As you can see, there are different members involved in this. Obviously, things may not be done by one user. Obviously, we used one single user because we didn't want to show, log in, log out many times. But obviously, this process is divided through different users, different teams. And now we thought to show you the latest enhancements. One of the enhancements that have been developed in 21X FD07 is the integration with part supply. So when you have the part supply widget, you can simply take a part from this widget and drag it and drop it directly into the component request itself. And this way you can attach it. And together with this drag and drop process, you will update the manufacturer part number, the MPN, the manufacturer, the part source, and the part source URL, the way it was defined in the part itself from the part supply. So that's the latest enhancement. It's available. We have documented this in the recent What's New presentation. And now I'd like to take your questions, and we'll see if we have questions in the community. Let's go back to the community.
Okay. Thank you, Naeem. Thank you, Frederick. I'm checking our community now, see if we have any questions.
Yep.
Oh, nice. You're sharing there. Awesome. We don't have anything yet, so this is a call to all of our viewers. If you have questions, please go to the post right now and enter them in the comment section. And, you know, if you're watching this on demand, we still encourage you to do the same thing. Go to this post and put your question, because Naeem and I will be monitoring this post over the next couple weeks, and we will answer any questions you have retroactively. So even if you're live right now and you just can't think of a question, but it comes to you a day later, don't worry. Add it up there.
Yep.
So we'll give you just another moment here. And again, please feel free to offer general feedback for us as well, letting us know if you like these webinars or if there's a topic that might be helpful for you. We'd love to get that information from you as well, because really these are all catered towards your needs and helping you stay up to date and use ENOVIA to the best of your abilities. All right. Well, I guess we won't have any questions live. I think you just did such a good job explaining it.
Thank you,
and Frederick.
I hope it was really clear. I know it is not that, you know, it's not that easy once we hear it the first time, but there is a lot of logic behind. We really need, we were really very interested to get your feedback, and the community is the place we would like you to put your questions, and then we will answer them, because it's new. As we said, it's something that has been shared with the public, you know, recently. So, and we keep developing it, and there will be a continuation with it further on. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. We did get a lot of likes, so it seems like people are enjoying this so far. So,
Sure.
Yeah, keep it up, everyone, and thank you, Naeem and Frederick. And as for all of our viewers,
special thanks to Frederick, who really helped building this.
Yes.
And it's really it's a great collaboration, and I hope really that, you know, these efforts we'll get them back by getting, you know, questions and communication through this community.
Yep. Maybe we can steal Frederick for some future webinars. Maybe. Thank you.
He's always willing to help. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you guys around the community and in the next webinars.
Yeah.
Adios. Ciao.
Bye.